Tim Frisch with a Frisch Perspective, bringing you analysis, reviews, and fun from a Christian nerd's point of view. Well, today I'm going to start a series that is a bit unusual because we are in a bit of an unusual time, and I'm calling this my Coronavirus Conversations. I plan to do some extra videos during this time of crisis and just unusual circumstances that we're facing right now in our culture. And so this is episode 1. I don't know if I'm going to be doing this every single day or if I'll be maybe doing it every few days. It kind of just depends on how a lot of other things go in my life and out in the world. So this is what I'm calling episode 1, Coronavirus Encouragement. I hope that this first episode will just be an encouragement to everybody as we go through this. And we are in a really unusual situation. I was talking to my kids about this, and I'm pretty sure that we as a country have never quite had a situation like this. And we've been through some really difficult things in the past. But as far as a situation where we've actually started to have so many states shutting down their school systems, I think a lot of states now have done that, and I wouldn't be surprised if eventually all the states shut down the school systems, but we'll see what happens. And so I was talking to my children about that, and it's just really unusual. So in our case, I live in New Hampshire, and we have, as of yesterday, been told by our governor that our schools are going to be shut down for 3 weeks. My kids go to a Christian school, so they're going to be not meeting. They will still be learning. So right now, our kids are actually starting to homeschool. And I'm sure our school that they go to will help to supply some curriculum and help with that. But it's funny because I have 6 children. We have a van, and on the back of the van we have the stick figures of our family. I know it's kind of cliche. And when people see this van and all our kids, they often say, "Oh, you homeschool, don't you?" Because it's just assumed if you have that many kids, you must homeschool. Well, I will say now we actually are homeschooling, and it's great in our case because we have such a big family that even if the kids don't go to school, they pretty much have a school size group at home. You know, they can go home and still be with a lot of other children. So that's good. And I am very grateful that we are able to make do with the situation. But I know it's hard for a lot of people. And that's what I want to ask, first of all, just to kind of have a conversation with those who are out there. What's been hard about this situation for you so far with the coronavirus spread, the pandemic? And I would love to hear in the comments some of the things that you are thinking about and that have been hard and challenging for you out there. So feel free to leave some comments and keep this discussion going. But I will say as we do these talks that it's not so much that I'm going to be always talking about the coronavirus. I just think that, you know, while we're hunkered down a lot more, we're not going out, it's an opportune time for me to make some extra videos and specifically to just give us something to be able to converse about. So we'll just take some extra time during this situation to talk. I know a lot of places are closed down. And so, you know, we have some extra time on our hands, a lot of us. So let's use it productively, let's use it positively, and that's kind of what I'm trying to do in these videos. So it's not like we're just going to only talk about the coronavirus in these videos, but that is obviously going to be a theme. And I have to say, you know, as I look at this situation, I do think that I am able to talk about this in a certain way. And first of all, one way I can talk about this is someone who's dealt with anxiety a lot in my life, that I generally am an anxious person. I've done videos about my struggles with anxiety, so feel free to go and watch those videos that I've done on anxiety. But I will say, I'm on a Facebook group where people struggle. They talk about their struggles with anxiety, and one of them was saying how, it seems like the people who typically are very anxious are actually handling this situation that we're in right now pretty well. And I think that's because they're used to being ready for something that they're scared about, or they're worried about, So now it actually gives us something tangible to be dealing with. Whereas when you just have general anxiety, you're kind of feeling anxious and worried, but you're not even sure specifically what about, or it can attach itself to a lot of different things. So I actually think there's some truth, and that's what the person was talking about, how it just seems like, people that struggle with anxiety are actually handling the situation pretty well. And I think that's because they're already used to thinking through dangers and things that could go wrong. But a lot of people in our culture aren't ready and have really been thrown off. So I am speaking to issues like this as a person who struggles with anxiety myself. I've also worked in church for many years, worked in a church setting with youth ministry and with adults. And so for 20 years or so, I've been working with people and have had to talk with people and help people through some pretty difficult things. I'm also a husband and father. I mentioned that I have a large family. We have 6 kids. And so, going through this as someone who has children and now they're having to stay home from school, I feel for the people out there that are having to deal with adjusting their whole life because of what's going on. And pretty much all of us are having to adjust our lives. But I'm just going to speak about some of these things from that perspective. But again, what's been the hardest thing for you? As we get into this situation and we're delving into it more and more, I mean, this could be 2 weeks, a month, maybe more of our lives really being thrown off their normal routine. So what's been hard about this situation, and what are you doing to cope? I hope that these videos will be an encouragement to you and will help you in some way to cope with whatever it is you're dealing with. But I just want to take some time now to encourage you. And one way we can do that is, even in the midst of hardship and crisis, is to count our blessings. So I just have several things that I've thought of here that are real blessings right now, even in the midst of this. And the first one is that we have technology. Technology for school. I mean, even though kids can't go to school, we're still able to do distance learning. My son, he's at UNH, and he has to stay home from college, but he's still able to do distance learning during this time. And technology is helping with that. It helps us to continue to be able to buy things. I mean, Amazon, right? A lot of us use it anyway. And here we are in this time of crisis, having to be quarantined a lot more, and yet we can still get the goods that we need. So that's wonderful. And even handling money. I mean, we do need to tap into our bank accounts and have access to our money. And if we were in times past and we couldn't get into the bank, we'd have a problem. But in today's world, we can do the drive-through, we can access our bank account online. And so because of technology, even though it's a tough situation, we really have it a lot better than it could be. Another blessing is that we have great medical technology and great people working on this situation. I mean, it's tough, but I think the reason it seems like such a big deal is because we are trying to handle it. And think about pandemics and epidemics in times past, years ago, and how widespread they were and how many people died. And some of those things were much worse diseases than what we're dealing with now. So the fact that we have medical technology and just such wonderful experts and people that have studied, and just an amazing medical community that can work on this situation, not only in this country, but working together with people throughout the world, because again, with technology, we're able to interact with people so easily no matter where they are in the world. So we've got great medical people working on the situation. We also have a country that is a blessing. Here I am in America, and many countries throughout the world have so much to be thankful for, but here I do see people working together. I believe we have the potential as Americans to work together, and I actually think the fact that people are cooperating and choosing to stay home when necessary, and they're trying to look out for each other. And I know that we struggle with that. There's been some people that have been hoarding and panic buying. I know there's some of that, but ultimately I believe that Americans will come together and help each other out in this situation. So I am so grateful for a country where we really do care about each other in so many ways. I think we see that. Also, there's the blessing of our information access today. That, yes, it's scary, and one of the problems in this situation has been a lack of knowledge and lack of clear information or conflicting information, right? But that information we're getting is getting updated very quickly, and we have great access to that information. So you can go to the CDC website and just continually get the updates that you need. When the government wants to tell us something, they're doing conferences that are put right on television, and we're able to just quickly get the information that we need. So what a blessing that is. And even though you might be feeling anxious or apprehensive during this time, isn't it great to know that there is a lot of information that you can get and that you're going to continue to be updated with in the coming days and weeks. So that's a great blessing. Another blessing is, even though this disrupts our lives and we have to be home more, a lot of us, and kids are going to be around more, there is the blessing of you get to be with the people you love even more. And I actually think that's a great thing. There's no doubt I'm going to be with my kids more in the next few weeks. And I'm grateful for that. I think that's a good thing. It kind of reminds us, too, in this situation, what's really important, right? And it's not all the things that we're doing all the time or all the money we're trying to make. It's really people, right? It's the relationships that we have. It's one of the most important things about life. And really, you could say our love for God, our love for people around us are the most important things in life. And so, that's a blessing that we get to be with people more. Another blessing is, it's in the hard times that it kind of resets us. As humans, we can be greedy, selfish. You may have noticed that. And I think that, as Americans, we're always looking at what we don't have. We're always looking at how things could be better. Sometimes the best thing that can happen to you is to go through a trial to kind of remind you of how much you really have. And I really think through this situation, we're going to come out on the other side and be so grateful just to be able to send our kids to school, right? And to be able to do the things that we take for granted. And so I think this situation is going to actually help us to be more grateful. It helps us to learn to do with less, because we have such an abundance, and we tend to just, flippantly use whatever we have and throw it away. And we're not always economical in our use of things, and we can be wasteful. So I think situations like this really remind us, wow, what a blessing it is to have the things that we have, and we need to be grateful for what we have. So I really think it's actually going to help us, and going through the trial of it, the hardship of it, actually ultimately makes you a better person. I think of generations past. We call the generations, a couple generations ago, the greatest generation, and they went through a great trial of World War II, and you think about what a hardship that was for them and the culture at that time, and yet they ended up being better people. I really think going through this, even though we don't want it, we don't choose it, it actually makes us better people. It exposes our selfishness. It exposes our tendency to look out for number one rather than for one another. But this forces us to say, what should I really be doing with what I have? And am I concerned for people around me? And I think this will help us to be more compassionate and concern for others. So in many ways, we could just say this is going to help us in the long run in terms of our character. And that leads me to one final thing, and I'm saying this as a Christian, that I think this all reminds us of our dependence on God, which, again, as Americans, we can really easily take things for granted. There's a phrase in the Lord's Prayer that Jesus teaches us to pray, and it says, "Give us this day our daily bread." I think as Americans, we can kind of scoff at that and say, what? Give us this daily bread? I mean, we've got plenty of food. Well, why do we need to pray about that? But doesn't this situation remind you that you can't take anything for granted? And so we really should echo those words. We should be saying to God, God, I can't take anything for granted. Please supply my needs and the needs of others today, because it's because of what you supply that I'm able to have what I have. And that's why it was great that yesterday, Sunday, March 15th, was a day of prayer. But I think for us believers, we need to keep praying for the needs of our country and people around the world to be met, praying for wisdom for the leaders and for the medical community, praying for just for people to work together and for this situation to be dealt with in the right way. So, I mean, there's so much we can be praying about, and this situation reminds us that we really ultimately need to depend on God, and we do depend on God for everything that we have. So I hope that's been helpful. I hope that those thoughts are something that maybe are a bit of encouragement to you, but I would love to hear from you what you're going through and what you think about the situation, and maybe questions that you have that I could address in upcoming episodes in this series. But I think, again, we're all kind of hunkered down now, being quarantined a lot more. This is an opportune time to have more conversation, and hopefully positive and uplifting and helpful conversation, because I want you to know, if you're out there, that God loves you, and I care about you too, and that's why I do these videos, because I want to be an encouragement and help to people. So feel free to just interact with me in the comment section, and I really believe that there's a lot of good things that are going to come through this hard situation. We can't deny that it's hard, but I believe there are blessings in it, and I hope that this time together has reminded us in some way to count our blessings, even in the midst of our struggles. Thank you so much for watching this first episode on the coronavirus situation, brought to you from a Frisch perspective.